3 years before, the Prime Minister Erdogan visited Athens. And the day of the visit, John Sofoglu, a friend of mine, a colleague in Turkey, and myself wrote an article in a Greek newspaper, Kathimerini, and we asked from both the two prime ministers to ratify the Convention for the Protection of National Minorities of Council of Europe. This is a convention ratified by 39 European states, all members of Council of Europe, with a very important organ of control and a rich and very important and interesting case law for the protection of minorities. I repeated this, let's say, hope, Christian language, is the hope that at least Prime Minister Erdogan, the Turkish authorities, will ratify this convention. We have to change the, let's say, the context of Lausanne Treaty, because it's not easy now to change the practice of interpretation of this convention, the realities of this convention. We have to adopt a modern system, a modern legal context for the protection of minorities in Turkey and in Greece, but let's say in Turkey because this is the subject of the topic of our meeting, of our conference. And this is a very interesting and very excellent, in my view, context, the context of the Convention for the Protection of National Minorities of Strasbourg.
I think we have 6 luxurious minutes in which we can open to the audience for you to make requests. This is such a rich topic, so I would urge you to ask any question you wish, but be as brief as possible so our panelists can try to respond. Blinded by the light, as it were.
Nick, Larry, Jack. Anybody hear me? I want to follow up a little bit, actually. In the microphone?
Microphone.
It's coming together. Thank you. Nick, Larry, Jack in Washington, D.C.
I'd like to follow up a little bit more on Elizabeth's question to the panel. And it just seems like today I learned a lot of things here today. I learned, for example, all these other minorities have similar issues like the patriarchy. And I find that there's all sorts of these movements that are happening in Turkey. We need to do more to help these movements from without. This is not Syria. This is not Iran. This is not some rogue country. This is a country that's tied to the West. It's part of NATO. It's part of the European Union. It wants to join the European Union. You said, I believe, Mr. Mandel, that for security reasons and other reasons, the United States most likely will not put pressure on Turkey in what the European Union will. But I really feel that it's incumbent on us to go back to our governments, wherever we are, in the Western world, and petition them to put more pressure on them. And there should be more things that we can do. They're not part of the European Union, but they are part of the customs union. Well, maybe they should be suspended from that. They are part of NATO.
Nick, what's the question?
The question is, I'd like to hear more about what you think. Is there just lip service going on right now from the West, or can it be more tangible pressure put on Turkey? Will they listen to this pressure? Will it make a difference with this pressure from the West, or will they just ignore it? Unless there's some conditions put on it.
My personal reaction is they're more likely to respond if it kind of comes as dialogue as opposed to imposition. The imposition always gets people's backs on. Now, I think you're right, and I think the U.S. policy for a long time has been skewed, and I think very badly for concerns on security that I don't think really play out in practice for a lot of reasons. There's a lot there that I don't want to go there. But I do think there's a real opportunity now, given what's happening in the region and what's been happening in Turkey, its deteriorating relationship with Israel. There are a lot of issues that I think make it more vulnerable in terms of a state-to-state relationship with the United States. And I can't talk about Europe. And I do think there's an opportunity. I would agree that those who are concerned about these issues should go to the U.S. government and press for the U.S. to bring this up, make it an issue of discussion, make it clear that it matters to Americans as well as the U.S. government. I just indicate, I think it's a challenge for a lot of reasons, but it is worth doing. The more voices, the more forums, the more sources of concern, the greater the likelihood that we will get some positive action.
I would just, the one thing I'm conscious of is that there's a tremendous risk here of getting an allergic reaction. And so well, I agree entirely with, we need to find creative ways. I think we need to find ways, and I don't have any instant answers, but ways that will sort of invite Turkey to assert leadership. To do this in a way that is coming at them, affirming friendship and not merely critique. Otherwise, they're drifting away from Europe. I think there's a lot of momentum that's going in the wrong direction, and the wrong kind of voices can make things even worse.
Another question? In the back, to the left. Forgive me for pointing.
Father Dimitri Tsigas from Melbourne, Florida. How can we sensitize the 99% of people in Turkey to have compassion and understanding and press for the need to seek justice for their 1% of their neighbors?
Not easy. I think we all live in societies where sometimes it's hard to get fellow citizens to be sensitive on these issues. I think to the extent, again, it comes within rather than without, it has the best chance of acceptance. And maybe to the extent that we are able to help empower religious minorities within Turkey to make the case better themselves, so it does not appear to be the foreigners making the argument that people who are fellow Turkish citizens bearing the burden that other Turks do, making the case. I wish I had a better answer.
One other question here, I think, will be our last.
Nick Chirma, from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Let me give you a hypothetical and ask that you take the hypothetical and do something. Let's assume for a moment that a month ago, Turkey announced that it was going to issue, for the first time in 10 years, Eurobonds that were going to be underwritten by Barclays Bank, Deutsche Bank, and UBS. Now, each of those are international banks. Each of those operates under a code of ethics, which can be found on their websites. And part of the code of ethics of each of those banking institutions is a provision that we will not deal with sovereign entities that commit human rights violations. I put to the panel a question: what do you do with that fact?
Well, let me respond.
The hypothetical is not a hypothetical. It's reality. And this is a multi-billion-dollar bond issue that Turkey, for the first time in 10 years, is going to be issuing underwritten by these banks.
Well, this goes to my point about the global compact. It's a similar kind of notion. And actually, I can't remember if this happened when you were on the commission or not, but I know there was some talk among the commissioners of trying to go into the money markets and put some pressure there. I'm not sure if that ever happened.
That was before my time.
That was before your time. Okay. Well, I think that there may be some very real leverage points if people take some things like commitments that there's something like 7,000 major multilaterals, multinationals, who have signed on to the UN Global Compact and have signed on, among other things, commitment number one is that they will support international human rights standards. If that were given some teeth in this kind of context, it would certainly get some attention.
Just to add that I think that you have the processes like the global compact and all that, but I think we also have to emphasize that you have to have way of monitoring these mechanisms to make sure that in fact they're being enforced. And that's where I think